Hey everyone, welcome to episode 9 of Tea Time with Mel and Jay. This time we do have some tea of our own, unlike last time. We have a cute little summer glass here. What are you drinking, Mel?
Summer moment for you and another summer moment for me. I'm having Loverboy. It's a Bravo fave, Kyle, Amanda, and Carl. I felt like, since I always rep Bravo and my reality peeps, I had to have a little Loverboy on hand for today.
I think it's so perfect. I'm trying to find a lover boy, so hey, maybe good vibes.
Hey, I'm putting all the juju in the air for you this summer.
Okay, anyway, so here we are, episode 9. It's been a little bit, so I'm really happy to be back.
Yeah, me too.
And we have such a good review today. I think when we were trying to decide what we wanted to do, I think this kind of happened organically. And everyone, so what we're reviewing today is Rising Phoenix. It is a documentary on Netflix. It came out in 2021, so it's brand new. And it highlights the Paralympics and certain athletes and dates and times and certain milestones within the whole organization. And we thought it was perfect timing because this summer we have the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo. Obviously, we're in 2021. It got pushed back an entire year. So we have the Olympics and then we have the Paralympics after the normal Olympics go. So a couple key dates. The Paralympics start on August 24th. So everyone mark your calendars because
get that Google alert.
Set a Google alert for the Paralympics because I'm telling you, I just got goosebumps talking about it. This documentary, I don't know if our audience has watched the Paralympics before or attended. I don't know who's gone to the Olympics, but it is such a great demonstration of sport and tenacity and strength and so many more things. So if you watch this documentary, it will make you want to tune in. So make sure you set that Google alert for August 24th, 2021. The Paralympics are set to kick off. Love it.
Let's do this.
Yeah. So also like with Paralympics, I did a little bit of research because I wanted to make sure that I really understood what I was getting myself into and understanding like the whole process. So here are some numbers about this year's Paralympics. Okay. And I just love numbers. I love sports stats, and these aren't necessarily stats, but there's some numbers that we want to pay attention to before and during, watching the Paralympics, just stuff to think about. So there are 4,440 athletes that are expected, and there's 540 events in 22 sports. I think that's the coolest thing. That is the coolest thing. So there's also a breakdown because you're kind of thinking, all right, cool, Paralympics. Like in my mind, I didn't really know essentially the breakdown of what that really meant. But what they do is they break it into 6 broad categories of how they, set up the disability. Okay. So there's amputee, there's cerebral palsy, there's wheelchair, there's intellectual, there's vision, because there are blind athletes.
Did you the soccer players?
I am dead, blind, and other. So if you don't fit into a category, those other 5 categories, I think they just lump you into other. I'm not really sure. Now, broad is broken down into more specific, and there's 10 of those, but I don't think we really need to dive into that. So it's broken down into 6 broad categories, and I'm all about the Paralympics.
I really can't wait to watch because, there was one part of the documentary, sorry, I'm hitting the ground running because I think this is like while we're talking about and introducing like when the Paralympics are like, I didn't even know, I'm ashamed to say, but I didn't even know really when the Paralympics are. I know I've seen a couple of the events, and every year, I see the marketing for it and everything. But, when they were talking to the Australian rugby, the murder ball player,
Mhm.
and he was like, I saw all these people in sports and I didn't want to watch people in wheelchairs. And here he was somebody who needed to be in a wheelchair himself.
Mhm.
But he's like, I think, that's a big consensus with a lot of differently abled people, or with abled people,
Mhm.
that it's not always at the top of your list, of a program to watch. So, but by watching this documentary, I mean, it was pretty revolutionary to me to, in my love of athleticism, my love of sports, my love of the human condition, of, this fight of the human spirit. I think this documentary covered all of it and completely like reinvigorated my love of really just like full on athleticism. Like, these differently abled people are athletes, are up there with the highest abled athletes. I mean, there is no difference in my opinion. No difference.
No
It is
difference.
wild. Wild.
Honestly, same. No difference at all. And I thought it was perfect, aside from us being just a couple months away from the Olympics and the Paralympics. I thought this was perfect to do, given the state of our society and how everybody's fighting for different types of inclusivity. This is something also that it's an everyday fight for these athletes. Like, they're bringing home gold, silver, bronze medals from a worldwide athletic competition, and they are still fighting for inclusivity. And I think it's a perfect time to talk about it, because we have so many different struggles with races, with age, with different aspects of society that people are fighting to be included. And this is just one of the many. And I really was inspired by this. And I don't ever think of myself as somebody who doesn't include, non-able-bodied people or disabled people. But in my mind, I never really tuned into the Paralympics. Why is that? Nobody instilled in me that they're just as great of athletes as an able-bodied person. I don't know. I never did. But this year I'm like, forget about the regular Olympics. I'm into like the Paralympics. Like, get me there. I would love to watch it in person. And
seriously, I was like, how do we go? Like, how do we go and see? I think there's a different, I mean, you can't deny that there is a different fight that these athletes have than the athletes that we see on TV every single day. We don't see a lot of differently abled athletes on TV every day. And it almost made me really frustrated, because I was like, how can we highlight and incorporate these athletes and these sports more into the mainstream sports world? Like, I am tired of seeing like a white football player, or I am tired of seeing,
that's crazy that you bring that up, because also we're seeing the fight for women's sports. If we bring it back to the NCAA basketball tournament, when there was the differences in the weight rooms and the differences in the cafeteria food that they were receiving, whatever it's called. But, we saw those differences at the collegiate level of these amazing athletes, who a percentage of them go on to play professional. So here we are trying to get people more into watching athletes that are disabled.
Yeah.
But they're athletes. Like, they are athletes. Oh my God. I want to like strangle people. I was like, yes.
Like, how can we scream it from the rooftops? I feel like that's how we are with all of these documentaries. We're like, how do people not know about this? Like, how are we so late to the game? But I think what was really also great about this documentary was, it may seem like such a simple notion, but there are different ways. Like, you are sometimes born differently abled. You go through a traumatic life event, a sickness, an accident. And so there's all different levels and stages of these athletes learning how to work with their disability.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the coolest thing about it. And really kind of the struggles that they go through with their family, with accepting the disability themselves.
Usually it was the parents that were having the most hard time with it, which
Absolutely.
I can get as a parent. I'm not, but I can imagine like my mom, if I'm sick, and your mom, if you're sick or whatever, a parent wants to be able to take away the pain from their child. And
Right.
if they can't, it's like, it's doom from there. But the attitudes of these athletes, given their situations, they're like, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. Oh, I have to feel sorry for you because you have no legs. It's like, no, you don't.
Right. It was never like a woe is me. Oh my gosh, I have to, overcome this. It was like, okay, what's the next step? And
Mhm.
that's what I really found was so profound about it was, you know, not and it started out with their families, and then you see them meeting this adversity even with coaches. Oh, you should go back to your summer sport. You should use this type of thing. You're not going to achieve this, coming from people who are supposed to be mentors in their field.
Mhm.
So you can see they're not over. So they make it past this hurdle, of having this disability and figuring out how to live their lives. Then they find a way to incorporate athleticism and sports into their lives. They've got the support of their family, the support of their friends, and then you finally make it to this, penultimate of the Olympics or, a high level sport, and you're still facing adversity. It's like, how much more do they have to prove that they deserve to be there? They deserve a spot. I mean, it was nuts to me. Totally
Yeah.
nuts.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better. Like, just the whole journey from, and everybody had their own journeys. There was the swimmer, Ellie Cole. She was born healthy at 3 years old, had to have her leg amputated.
Yeah.
She's like, I want to be a ballerina, but I am the most graceful swimmer on this
I love
team.
that.
Gold medal swimmer. Then you have Bibi Vio, who's an Italian fencer who was born healthy and just one day randomly was diagnosed with meningitis that was not going away. And she has no, her arms were amputated at a certain point. Her legs were amputated at a certain point. So she's a quadriplegic, like no arms and legs. And
Yeah,
she
by
wins
like
gold
10 years
medals
old.
at fencing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what was so cool was to see how these sports truly can be adapted for anybody.
Yeah.
Any level of, I was thinking about it in terms because I did a bar class this morning,
Mm-hmm.
bar Pilates class. And it was like, okay, do this modification, do this modification. And I'm like, of course, like this is just a modification, and that's what it should be looked at as.
Mm-hmm.
It does not make you any weaker. It does not make you any less. It's just an alternate way of doing the moves like that
Yeah.
are still effective. You're
Yep.
still participating. You are still an athlete. You are still athletic. And I was like, it's just a different way of doing it. It's not really that deep. It's just a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have the athletes that got sick, right? And then you have the athletes that are born healthy, like Jean-Baptiste Alizé, who was born in Africa and literally was attacked during this Renaissance period in his
In
home
his
country,
village.
in his
Yeah.
village, and was macheted and lost his leg because he was macheted and then had to witness his mother be murdered. And then he grew up in an orphanage. And I'm telling you, these people I'm watching specifically the track and field when they have the sprinters that are missing one or two legs. They are so fast. My mind was blown.
Yeah.
How are you you're so fast. I mean, shame on me for just saying, how are you so fast? Shame on me, because you are a person and you're an athlete and you're fast because you're an athlete. Shame on me for saying that, but you can't help but think you're faster than most people who have two legs.
Yeah.
Which
and that's the whole thing. And I think what is so incredible, and you have to really hand it to these athletes, is we always talk about the mental game, right? And the mental fortitude that professional athletes have to have. Whatever type of performance artist you are, you have a different switch in your brain. And I think for these disabled athletes that have had to overcome even more adversity than most, especially the track and field star that came from the orphanage and found his way. I mean, it's really wild to me that when you have nothing, I mean, you literally come from something where you could just give up your life and say, this is too much, to develop the mental strength to keep going and then become a world champion, like runner and gold medalist is beyond. Like there's no limits. There's
no, there's not. And you know what struck me about him, the one that grew up in the orphanage that like survived a massacre? He was a jumper, and he's like, I jump to escape, because he has, how can you not, like, in life and especially in dating. Well, you'll meet people who are a certain way and who have all these like boundaries and holdups and like speed bumps that they can't get past. And it all stems from childhood.
Yep.
So things are unresolved from when you were a child. And this man has so many unresolved things, but you know what? He just jumps and he escapes it. So that's his therapy. That's his way of living his life, is to escape through his sport. And I think a lot of people do that, even able-bodied athletes, even people who play for fun on intramural teams, who aren't, doing it to be super competitive at the highest level. That's why sport is such a big thing. That's why you get your kids in sports. That's why everybody wants to participate, because regardless of what age you are and regardless of what has happened in your life, sport is an escape.
That's exactly what I wrote down. I had in huge letters, thank God for sports.
Yeah.
Because as I'm watching this, I'm like, it gives you a purpose. It gives you something to strive for. It gives you a community. It has built-in mentors. I mean, you have a built-in family and people that really, want to see you succeed. Do I think that the world of sports is the healthiest all the time? No. But I do think that sports at its base, and why sports were created and why they are so revered, is because of the mental strength and then the social strength and just the ability to be a more well-rounded person. Is I can't thank my parents enough for getting me involved in athletics growing up. I just am watching this made me so grateful, because it's like you really do develop. There's just something, a different sense of wholeness that you develop. Whether it's dance, whether it's swimming, fencing, shot put, whatever it may be, being a part of a group effort, I think, is so important. Being a part of the community is so important.
Even if you're in an individual sport like fencing or like shot put or like, anything really track and field related, unless you're doing a relay, obviously you're on a team, you're on Team USA. And if you're in the Olympics, or whatever country you're from, but I think regardless of whether it's like an individual sport or a team sport, you still get that aspect. This was so good in portraying the importance to like support this organization. How about when they were bringing it to, they talked about the London Olympics and then they brought it to Rio, which was 2016, and how they were having a hard time like with the budget. There was something happened with the money and they had to fight for the money. Otherwise it wasn't going to, the Paralympics weren't going to happen. And then ticket sales were slow. And then eventually it picked up and people are buying tickets to watch athletes. And I specifically remember about the London Games. Okay. Johnny Peacock, who was
the sprinter, right?
The sprinter who was projected to beat I forget the athlete's name, but he was returning. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The South African?
No, he was Brazilian.
Oh,
I think he was Brazilian. And he came up to him before and was like, this is your race. And this was the race that made me look and think like, holy moly, these people are fast, like real fast. So he goes, it's in London. It's the final heat because in track and field, they do all different heats and whatever. So it's the final heat. Whoever wins this wins gold. And so the British man, Johnny Peacock, who was very cute, by the way. Like, hello.
Oh, he was so cute.
Yes.
They were all very attractive.
So cute. Also like an impromptu appearance from Prince Harry in this documentary. Did you see that? Like, what was that?
Yeah, I was like, oh, hi.
Yeah. Wait, but so let's go back to a London Games. So London Games, it's all, the hype is real. The hype is real. So boom, it's 100 meters. Like it's done and done. It's super fast.
Yeah.
So he goes and he wins. And like this full stadium erupts. I have goosebumps talking about it. And then his mom comes in and she goes, they weren't cheering for disabled people and like cool. They were cheering for athletes and sport. I'm like, oh my God, get me.
I literally had that written down here. She's like, it's because they were watching a sporting event. And I was just like bawling my eyes out.
I didn't cry there, but I was like, yes, Mom.
The quotes in this documentary are so poignant.
Can we talk about the quote queen?
Which
BB?
one?
BB. Oh my gosh. At the beginning, okay, she's like, she goes, I wrote them down. She goes, I literally wrote quote queen. She goes, her nickname used to be Rising Phoenix. And she mentioned that she was called the Rising Phoenix. She goes, the Phoenix can live and die and burn and live again. What?
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Mind blown.
She then also continues to say, and this is more towards the end after we really know, like before we didn't know her story. So we knew her story. And she goes, if no one believes in me, okay. But if I don't believe in myself, that's a real problem.
She love her. And that sounds like mine that I highlighted. I think this was, who said this? Oh gosh, it was one of like the founders of the Paralympics. And he said, he's like, at the end of the day, these athletes, you just have to move on, live life, even if others don't think you can. And I was like,
And then BB said one more that I wrote down. Quote queen at her finest.
Yeah.
You just need to accept the situation that you're in and accept how beautiful it is.
I mean, talk about just like motivational quote, daily affirmations.
Yes.
I think that was the biggest with this documentary is, yes, there is a historical aspect to the documentary that is so poignant and so profound to see what this doctor's dream was for the Paralympics. And I highly recommend watching the documentary for this as well, other than, like the bright and shiny, moments that we're watching these athletes shine, really learning the history and, what went into the thought behind this is incredible. But I think all in all, this documentary wasn't sappy or cheesy.
Oh.
It was so real
Real.
and just matter of fact. Like, this is here. The Paralympics and these, differently abled athletes are here, and you need to recognize them and you need to celebrate them. My favorite part was in the beginning when they were talking about the Olympics, and the Paralympics are after the Olympics.
Yeah.
And they had the billboard that was "Thanks for the warm up."
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the attitude of this documentary.
Yeah.
It was this just huge, kind of confident documentary that's like, hey, like, get into it.
Yeah, because you know what? That is the vibe for every single athlete that's competing at the Paralympic Games.
Yeah.
They're just confident, happy, ready to work. They've already put in 5 years of work for each Olympics, or like 4 years of work. And all they want to do is succeed at their sport. And that's all they've, been training their whole life for, because that's just what's going on. Just like any other athlete that has an ability.
They just want to be looked at and treated like athletes, and that they are. They just want to be treated like they are a normal person, which they already are normal.
They are.
Like, they're not different.
They're better. They're better. I mean, they have more appreciation for things. I don't know. I'm ready to watch it. August 24th, Google alert coming in hot.
I'm ready. We're gonna have a watch party and
yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I mean, also, I think on the last Olympics, that the Paralympics had more attendance than the regular Olympics.
I mean, it's just in mind-blowing feats like that. I can't even wrap my head around. It's completely wild. And I do have to say a shout out. I did have a soft spot in my heart because my grandfather and my great grandfather both they made prosthetics for people coming out of the war. So which was right when this doctor created the Paralympics. So I was like, oh, wow. And my grandfather was in Hungary and was making these prosthetics, or his father was making these prosthetics out of Hungary for the soldiers that had been wounded in Berlin and Poland. So it was like a whole full circle. I was like, wow, that's really cool.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That. Well, I have to shout out Tatiana McFadden, who was somebody that was featured in this documentary. She was born in Russia, and she had an issue with her legs that they were like growing backwards. It was weird. So she has her legs, but she can't really use them. Yeah. Anyway, so every year, Billie Jean King, who is iconic, all about women and inclusivity, she has a foundation, the Women's Sports Foundation, and every year she does the Women's Sports Foundation annual gala, where it's like an award. It's an award gala, and they highlight athletes, individual and sport and team athletes that have embodied what the Women's Sports Foundation like stands for. And it's basically like inclusivity for women. And now let me tell you, they have an award. It's called the Sportswoman of the Year Award. And year after year, there's Para-Olympians that are nominated for this award. And it just blows my mind. Anyway, but Tatiana McFadden, she's usually in attendance. She's, a very well-known Paralympic athlete. And the 2019, because Billie Jean didn't have the event, obviously, in 2020, but 2019 was the last time that I was in attendance at the gala, and I was able to chat with Tatiana, and she just was such a great person, and she just really supports Women in Sports Foundation. Obviously, she's a woman in sports, and she's disabled. So yeah, she just was really cool. And it's always really nice to talk to all the different women athletes and like hear what they have to say. Usually they have the same thing to say. They're, totally in support of women and children and like girls joining in sport and how it can open up so many doors for them. So they just want to pave the way for everybody who is looking towards their future and wanting to participate and be involved in sport. So
Yep.
I thought that was really cool. When she popped up on the screen, I was like, yeah, it was very, very, very cool. So yeah, I thought it was great. Do I want to give our champagne flutes?
Champagne flutes? Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. Like, I feel like I can't give any 5 out of 5, but this was very, very close to it just because I thought it has everything, whoever you are, with children, without children, friends, young, old. I think this is something for everyone because I think we all need a little bit of hope and a little dose of, how beautiful perseverance and the human spirit can be. And this was I'm really grateful that we watched this because it really gave me a newfound feeling of inspiration. Like, you can do anything you put your mind to. You just have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I also would give it 4.5. I think for me, I know how important the historical aspect of this documentary is. I just found myself getting a little lost. I don't know why. Maybe because it was sandwiched between these historic, heroic moments, and it was a little bit tough for me to like go back and forth. But I think that also maybe I just wasn't feeling my best yesterday when I was watching, or maybe I just wasn't in a great headspace, which this definitely helped. So either way, I was a little that tripped me up a little bit, but I would give it 4.5. I think it was great. I think everybody needs to watch this, especially as a precursor to the Paralympic Games that are happening. And if you're on the fence about whether you want to take the time to invest in watching because you're just unsure, this will definitely allow you to make a good decision and put yourself in front of the TV to support these athletes. Amazing.
Yeah.
I loved it. Okay. So now that we gave our champagne flutes, let's do what we do every tea time after we give our ratings, which is we virtually, quote, air quotes, we virtually introduce a guest that we would love to give their perspective on what we think they would have to say about this documentary. So do you want me to go first? You want to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, so I'll go first. I am bringing in Symone Biles, who is Olympic champion, most celebrated Olympian. She definitely has her foot in the diversity, inclusivity realm of using her face for. She is a Black athlete and she is a female. So two groups of people that have, recently been in the media having hard times with, having everything be, included. So here's the thing. So she won in 2014, she won the Women in Sports Foundation Sportswoman of the Year. Mm-hmm. However, recently, as of, end of April, she ditched her Nike contract and signed with Athleta. And not to say that Nike wasn't, inclusive, but she feels that her personal brand of what she wants to accomplish is better suited with Athleta. And here's a quote. She's like, Athleta is committed to diversity and inclusion of all women, backgrounds, ages, sizes, abilities, and races. So I thought that she would be perfect to come into our discussion of Rising Phoenix. And I think, I'm telling you right now, she watches the Paralympics. I just know. She definitely does. After she's, crushed the gymnastics, one all around, one team, one individual in each event, after she takes home 10 Olympic golds from each Olympics, she sits at home and she watches. Maybe she stays.
Yeah. I feel like she's somebody that would.
Yeah. So I would just say that she would kind of say what we said, like celebrate these people because they're athletes. They're athletes, period. period. They're athletes. So I think she would stress that she would want everybody to watch it prior to the Olympics, watch the Olympics, and then watch the Paralympics, because all of them include athletes that are amazing. So thank you, Simone, for your input.
Thank you so much for coming, Simone.
You're welcome.
So it's really funny that you say Simone Biles, because I actually brought 2 guests today.
Ooh, I love that.
So typically I would bring a Bravo person, but I did. But my first guest would actually be Jonathan Van Ness, who is Simone Biles' good friend. And I think they do the Uber Eats commercial together now. But I think that he is, we know he is a reality TV celebrity with Queer Eye. What is it? Fab Five? What is it? I guess
You're
it's just
asking the wrong person.
It used to be called Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, and now it's just called Queer Eye. So I always forget. But I think he has such a reverence and respect for athletes and the process that it goes into being an Olympic athlete. So I think he would be all over this documentary. I mean, as we know, he was skating with Michelle Kwan because he wanted to be a figure skater. He has been doing gymnastics for forever. He was doing some with Simone Biles. So he really has this, huge love of athletics and also the drama of it all. So I'm sure he would love this. And my second guest is Aviva Drescher of Real Housewives of New York, because she actually was the first housewife, and I think actually the only housewife to have a prosthetic leg.
Oh,
yes. And
who
so
knew?
I know. So she had a prosthetic leg. She lost her leg when she was 7 years old. She was at a farm. She grew up in the country, and her foot got caught in a manure mover.
No.
Yeah. And her friend, so they do this whole 3-part episode of her going back and revisiting the farm and seeing where she lost her foot. And so her friend had actually turned off the machine just in time, or she could have died because she could have gotten pulled in.
I am uncomfortable.
I know it was wild because, in this documentary, we see all different types of disabilities and, how they, lost their leg or their arm or, whatnot. And so she actually is part of a foundation. I have to think of the name of the foundation, but she raises money to purchase prosthetics for children in need. And so one of the episodes, she is giving a child his first pair of blades.
Oh my God.
And which are the running legs, and is showing him how to run, and they're teaching him how to run. And I just remember, I mean, she's literally an awful person, but I thought in that moment she was so human because it was so real. And that actually made me become an Aviva stan because it was so personal to her. And I actually looked into it at the time when I was watching it. And she actually she has a pretty heavy hand in that charity. So she's pretty involved, physically. She goes and, helps them fit for them and whatnot. So
I mean, that's great to have somebody help you.
Yeah, a representation. And it was really interesting because on the show, there was really no respectful conversation around her being, having a prosthetic. So it was, I think, a learning curve for Bravo. And I know they received a lot of backlash, and a lot of the women received a lot of backlash for how they treated her, telling her what she could and couldn't do with her prosthetic. Oh, you can't get it wet. And she's like, I've had this my whole life. I'm pretty sure I know what to do with my leg.
Right.
So it was just interesting to see that, we still are learning to have these conversations. And it just reminded me that, just to continue to be open to learning about those things because we don't know it all.
No.
Yeah. So those are my 2 guests.
I love it. Thank you for joining.
Yay. Thank you, Viva and John.
Yay. Very
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Well, here we are. I hope
Episode
everybody takes the time to watch Rising Phoenix. It will definitely open your eyes. It is definitely worth the hour and 40 minutes, 45 minutes of length. I would watch it prior to the Paralympics and the irregular Olympics. I would, just take the time to appreciate and learn a little bit about these athletes and their journeys. I was almost going to say their struggle, wrong word, their journey. So I was really happy to learn. I'm definitely happy that we chose this as our documentary, and I can't wait to be back for episode 10. We'll have to do something that's
epic.
we're gonna have to do something epic because every week we're this was epic. So we have to continue doing epic things.
Exactly.
I am so there.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Episode 9. Here we go.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Next time. Bye.